The coronavirus, as we've been talking about, it leads into a very difficult situation for universities and students who are studying abroad.
So here is some guidance for us as former president of Brandeis University and former dean of George Washington Law School, Frederick M. Lawrence. Thanks for being here.
Good to be with you.
You know, we've heard so much about how it's affecting the economy, and it's
Right.
We've all got panics just for ourselves, but the universities, I mean, it's all about global education.
Well, in the last 20 years, the whole globalization of the American university has been a major development. So that once upon a time, it was sort of unusual of international students. When I would speak to student groups and I would tell them that we have 120 different countries represented on the Brandeis campus, the parents would always look amazed. And the kids would say, yeah, I bet you have hot and cold running water too, because they think that's how the world comes. They expect it to be global. And that's how we've been building it. When I left Brandeis, about 15% of our student body were international students. And so this all made sense educationally, it made sense financially, because most of those kids were full-pay students. And now all of a sudden that comes crashing into a wall.
Well, you mentioned it's March, so universities are planning for the coming semester.
Exactly.
And kind of with this, you don't know what's going to happen
Well,
next.
you have two things happening. There's the immediate issue, right? Your first issue is the safety of your students. So you're a president sitting here in the States, you've got students in, think about your graphic, China, Korea, Italy, those are all filled with international programs. So bring the kids home, that's your first thought. Well, first of all, as you well know, it's not that easy to bring them home. And secondly, what exactly do you do with them when you bring them home? Because your dorms are full. You plan for them to be abroad. So that's a challenge all by itself. And then the point that you made is exactly right. Right now, you're planning your budget for next year, which means both students going abroad and international students coming in. The problem is, it's the uncertainty of it. It may well be that by September, God willing, this is all done. But it's also possible that your international student body goes from 15% to 0. And
that no one is coming here.
That no one is coming here. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's not impossible. So the problem is, how do you plan for a small probability of a colossally bad outcome? That uncertainty is not something we're used to in our planning processes. And I can tell you that every president of every university and every chief financial officer working with her or him is thinking about that right now.
What should some parents ask if they have kids maybe studying abroad over the summer, and maybe things that they should be thinking about or maybe not overreact about?
Well, two things. First of all, paradoxically, the same advice I would give to the parents is going to make my colleague presidents crazy, which is the parents ought to, keep their powder dry. In times of panic, keep the boat a little closer to the shore. So don't make a decision till you absolutely have to. This may not be a good summer to go abroad, even if you were planning on it. Maybe you want to do a domestic program instead. As I said, I'm sorry for my colleagues who are dealing with this, but as a parent, that's the advice that I would give. Same thing for next year's program. No, you don't want to panic, but it is fair to ask, so what did you do right now? What did you do when this hit in your campus? That's a fair question to ask a dean of students or a dean of international students. Because if your child's going to go abroad, you want to know that somebody's looking out for them.
What about parents who are sitting at home saying, my child is abroad, and should I bring them home?
If their child is abroad, their university should long since have been in touch with them. If they have not been getting good information, that's a problem all by itself, and I would be very surprised of that. So most universities are on top of this. They brought a lot of the kids home from areas that are directly affected. I've been to Wuhan. When I was at GW Law School, we had a collaboration with the legal aid clinic that they had at their law school in Wuhan. It's a wonderful place with a wonderful university. It breaks my heart to think of what's happening in Wuhan. So I'm sure there were students there. And Shanghai, and Hong Kong, and Beijing. And so for all of those places, the university has to have been thinking about that.
And if they haven't, you need to get on them right now. Yeah, have a little chat with them.
Well, if they haven't, that would be a very, very serious problem.
Yeah. How is this virus affecting the health systems at the universities?
That's a great question. Our health systems increasingly have become focused on triage. You do a quick check on students, and if it's something serious, you triage them out to a major area hospital. So think of our schools in the Metro Washington area. There's so many good hospitals in this area that it doesn't make sense for Georgetown, GW, American to do all of that health care by themselves. Well, that's fine when you're talking about strep throat, when you're talking about the flu. In a situation like this, if a student who doesn't have symptoms is living in a dorm, I don't have to tell you how much interaction there is with students in the dorm, in the dining hall, in the library. And we want them to have that kind of interaction with each other. So if you're waiting for the simple answer now, there's not a simple answer. But there is all of the advice that I'm sure you're giving people, when you start to feel symptoms coming on, to do something with yourself, make sure you're away from people.
Be vigilant.
The simplest advice, and finally, most important, wash those hands.
Yes.
Wash the
the
hands.
basic
Frederick,
care.
thanks so much
Everything
for
your
being
mother told you turns
I
out to
know,
be
right?
true.
Keep washing those
you.
hands. Be safe, but we appreciate you updating us on
Good
everything.
being with you.